What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of MVP Unplugged, man.
And our today's MVP is Tamanna Tanveer, who's been an actor and a model to a luxury brand consultant and now a mental health advocate. She's very much more than that. So we'll find out in today's episode.
Let's
Thank you.
welcome Tamanna on the show, man.
Thank you so much for being there.
Guys, thank you so much for having me here.
Yes.
What's up? How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
2025 going according to your plans?
I have a feeling this is going to be an amazing year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How has it been so far? Already Feb ending.
Uh, I see a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
So, you have been doing a lot of things in your life. So, now I think most of it, what we are going to talk and cover in today's episode, would be about mental health. So, what do you think is one major requirement to talk about mental health in 2025 or this period of time we live in?
I think the way we look at mental health shifted so heavily during the pandemic
Hmm.
because what happens is there are a lot of issues when we think about mental health. The first is people think mental health is in the mind.
Yeah.
That is
You
what.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah.
overthinking is in the mind. Mental
Yeah.
health is actually your physiology. When you are stressed or when you're anxious, it's your heart that's racing.
Hmm.
Your thoughts might mirror your feeling. With that racing heart, you might get racing thoughts and overthinking, but it's a biological response.
Yes.
So I think the idea that mental health resides in the mind is something that a lot of people had, including me, until a certain age. Um, and when we were forced to slow down during the pandemic and sit
Hmm.
with ourselves for the first time, how much TV can you watch? How
Right.
much Netflix can you binge? And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
The first few months, my bar was stocked up. I had saved all my favorite shows for Netflix, and I was like, this is okay, this is just going to be gone in a month, and we are
Yeah.
all going to be over it before we know it.
Yeah.
And so I just thought this was, just a small glitch in life.
Hmm.
After the first few days, and after I think I had, maybe finished a bottle of Malibu, I was like, okay, now what is there? What is more to life? Because this is not going anywhere.
Hmm.
What am I, every night it was having, and I know that at least from my standpoint of view, I'm privileged enough that we didn't have scarcity,
Hmm.
but
Yes.
having everything is also the point that can sometimes give you in crisis, because I had everything
Definitely.
including time. And
Hmm.
when you put people in that situation and you give them unlimited time, there is a study that reports that people would give themselves mild electrocution
Okay.
rather than be left alone for 10 minutes without their devices.
Oh, shit.
I think I would somewhere agree to this. Not to contradict, but yes, I would agree because I think the fear of being lonely is so massive that no one would ever like not. No, I'm not talking about humans, but if you come to somewhere, even the animals wouldn't like to be lonely. Like the way it reacts different. Like even humans are very connected with that part of the thing where if you are lonely, the way you act and the way you react could be way more different than with a group of people who you know or something.
Biologically, we are wired for connections.
Right.
Yeah.
Connections are needed for survival.
Yeah.
If a person was truly antisocial, he would not be able to survive in a tribe mindset. You put a
Definitely.
person in a tribal setting and they needed to have those social skill in order to survive. So you
Yes.
put people at such large scales and you place them inside their houses. Of course, we had access to television and screens and all of that, but after a while, when everything is gone and you don't have work to do and you're just sitting and browsing your TV and stuff, some part of you, some reality kicks in and says, "What's there to life?" And
Hmm.
when we stop just that
Yeah.
mental binging and scrolling and pause to take breathe and
Yes.
take life in, we start to understand who we are, who people had not until that point of time. Whether they
Yeah.
were 18, whether they were 30, whether they were 50, a lot of people had never paused, because from the time we are born, we are told, we live in this world which tells us that this is what's important. Whether it's your grade, finding the right partner, finding the right job. And when you do find those things, even like you're spending 8 hours a day at work, 3 hours a day in your commute. You come back home, you have to do something for the kids. You're like kind of constantly on this hamster wheel. Even if there's nothing there, like there's like, okay, friends to go, movies to catch up with, you're never really truly still with yourself. And when
Yes.
people got forced to just be with themselves for a while, I think they realized that there was a lot of junk that they needed to look at.
Yes.
You know, people after clearing their closets realized that the true junk that
Yes.
existed was within them, and that they had a lot of stuff that they hadn't understood about themselves. I think the
Mhm.
realization, we all think we know ourselves.
Yeah.
They say, and this is I love quoting statistics and research.
Yes.
90% of people think that they're self-aware. Only 8% truly are.
Wow.
So if
Seriously.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
So for people who think that they know themselves, when they're like, they for the first time they were like, okay, but why am I like this?
Mm.
Why do I feel this way? And I think it's something that logically all of us, whether we suffer from something or don't, should have that moment and be like, why did I feel this way about a situation? But the thing is, we have been this way for so long that we feel that this is us.
Mm.
I don't get
Yes.
angry. It's that person who makes me angry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So do you think like talking about the pandemic and staying inside the house, do you think that caused a major rise in the mental health thing, or it was eventually from the beginning?
I think at that point of time, people started feeling fear and uncertainty. And
Mm.
in moments of fear and uncertainty, people, um, they actually got a breather, and they were content creators. They were people who were sharing and talking about mental health very clearly. So it did kind of initiate that journey. But I also feel like during this period, a lot of misinformation, a lot of
Yeah.
everything started going out as it's mental peace to there's boundaries and there's
Yes.
toxicity. Everything became toxic. Everyone suddenly was a narcissist.
Yeah.
The guy who dumps you is a narcissist. Everyone started using the way people have used mental health diagnosis labels just to classify people's behavior that they don't like has reached the next level. So if you ask me, it was and it has been uh, both positive, because it kind of did create a point of awareness,
Yeah.
but it
Definitely.
also has fed a lot of misinformation.
Misinformation.
So I feel like even now, when I look at Instagram from a space of how we aware about the other person, instead of understanding that behaviors come from something, like if the other person is ghosting, it's coming from somewhere. But instead of that, because it's complicated, right? Like I don't want to it's easy for me to say that this person is damaged, he's toxic, and put a label
Yeah.
and walk away. If I create empathy with someone who is not going to be there for me, it's not very good for me, right? So
Mm.
what we did also, I think, and what we do also, is excessively label people. A lot of people on internet are self-proclaimed ADHD sufferers.
Yeah.
You give a kid cell phone access,
Mhm.
and you see within 1 month how deficient their attention becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Attention is something that's trainable, but everyone suddenly has ADHD. I mean, I know there are people who are going to hate on this, because
Mhm.
there are people who have identified within themselves a certain label without it having come from any kind of diagnosis or a doctor. But labeling, and maybe it's good for them, but labeling your ex as narcissistic and toxic might help you get over the person, but it's
Yeah.
it's not really the reality,
That's wrong.
most probably, because it's a very limited set of people who will display certain. So in mental health, you have, say, 10 symptoms. Somebody has to fit in, usually, like for a diagnosis, say, of anxiety, they have to have 7 symptoms out of 10 to be diagnosed with anxiety.
Mhm.
How do people use these days? Like if they say they are stressed, or if, bro, I almost had a panic attack. You have not had a panic attack.
Yes.
Trust me, I
Yes.
will tell you
Yes.
what a panic
Yeah.
attack is.
Yes.
The way that we use. So I think the plus side is the awareness. The negative side is that it became so commonplace that everything they
everyone
started
said, yeah.
describing as every person is narcissistic. Every stressful situation is, I got a panic attack. This,
Yeah.
Anxiety and all of it.
yeah.
I was depressed, bro. Yesterday, I was depressed.
Instead
but
of
now
calling
I feel-
someone stupid, I've heard on
Yeah.
internet people calling the other person autistic. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not. You can't throw around labels like these. That's the downside of it.
I think what I feel is the axis of words. Like I think like 15 years back, there's nothing called anxiety and depression. At least what our age people, like 22, 23, no one knew what anxiety depression was. Like how common it's become is like even though the smallest thing which affected you in your life, you're like, I'm depressed. So it eventually makes you even more depressed once you know that this is depression.
I would like to counter that. When you use mislabeling, when you are sad and calling it depression is wrong.
Yeah.
Having access to words creates awareness, like
Yeah.
anything else. Like
Yeah.
having social media is helping you get awareness, but it can help you get awareness on how to make atomic bombs, or
Yeah.
it can help you get awareness on your topic or your passionate
Yes.
any
Yes.
subject
Yes.
that you're
Yes.
passionate about.
Yes.
Having access to mental health nomenclatures and diagnosis, like terms that are actually used for diagnosis with ease, or understanding them, what it means. Sadness is not depression. To
Yeah.
meet the criteria of depression, you need to meet a certain number of symptoms, and it needs to come from a medical professional. At the end of the day, you can't, like, can you diagnose yourself with a kidney failure sitting, like, will you be like, oh, I have not gone to the washroom for a while? You can probably,
Yeah.
the only thing that you, even if you see a doctor writing, they write symptoms first.
Yeah.
They'll say this person is having diarrhea, runny nose, XYZ, temperature. They will very rarely say this person has a viral infection unless they can confirm it through a medical test.
Yeah.
So, unless you can go to a doctor who is sitting down to understand your symptom and diagnosing you, you can't sit at home and call it depression. But people did do that. The upside, like I said, the awareness is good. When you are aware that person who could be facing a certain level of symptoms, maybe that person has not slept well in weeks, they have lost their appetite, they are sad to the point like they are getting negative thoughts about themselves, the world around them, it is time they see a doctor. And it's good to know that it could be depression, because if they didn't know that, I remember when I was having, so a part of my journey comes from, and the reason why I talk about mental health comes because I was diagnosed with a certain set of mental health labels. It included general anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks, depression. So with all of these, I never for 1 second thought I had panic attacks. For close to a year, I would keep running to the doctor, and I would run with a list of symptoms. They would always be the same: breathlessness. I felt like I was dying. I was convinced that there was something wrong with my heart,
Okay.
because that's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Yeah.
The experience of a panic attack feels closest to dying, but because nobody knew what panic attacks are,
How does
it
it
took.
feel
eh,
while you are having a panic attack?
Um, Imagine right now if the stage existed in front of 8,000 people, and you're
Okay.
someone who has fear of public speaking, and you're
Okay.
suddenly looking at a crowd of 8,000 people. Your head starts getting dizzy. There's
Okay.
breathlessness. There's this feeling that everything I've eaten is going to come out
Yeah.
at the same time. But this perpetual feeling of, the only thought in your head at that time is, I'm going to die, literally, because that's how intense you are experiencing your like your heart is beating very, very hard in your chest. You are breathing, but the feeling perpetually is that the oxygen is not reaching my lungs. Like how they described when people had COVID, right?
Yeah.
That they were breathing, but the oxygen was not getting absorbed. So this feeling like I'm breathing, but it feels like I'm not breathing. The breathlessness that you feel, like if you ran for a while and you experience a certain set, like if right now there was a lion chasing you and you start running, and you have all of these elevated heart rate, everything that you're experiencing, breathlessness because of running, but you're having it while sitting down normally. So there is a
Okay.
big disconnect between what your physiology is experiencing and what your environment is. So the first thing that everyone at that point of time would do, and what I did, and because I was really young, is go to multiple doctors and think that this was heart led or allergy led, and they would keep putting me on oxygen meters. I think I had my ECG done twice within few months. But when my symptoms got worse, at one point of time, I couldn't move my hand, and it was, the pain was so intense that I could barely write, and I started refusing to go to school. And that point, my parents took me to Manipal, and I hadn't slept, I think, in days. I had barely slept in, I think, 4 days. Maybe I'd slept for 3, 4 hours. At one point in time, they gave me meds to induce sleep. And when they ran through all the tests, in fact, there was a very visible swelling I had at this part of my neck. So they
Okay.
wanted to rule out everything biological because there's symptoms, but there's
Mhm.
also visible symptoms.
Mm.
And that was, the first time I understood what mental health really is. Because when the doctor told me the diagnosis, I just refused to believe. I was like, no, this can't be. Like, my mind is fine. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
experiencing clear thoughts.
yes.
I am feeling like myself. Like, you have an idea of what mental health is, but when somebody, and you have to imagine this for people who get a diagnosis, which could be something like bipolar, right? Because
Hmm,
their thinking
hmm.
is fine.
Yeah.
Mm.
The feeling like I'm fine. Like, why is this person giving me, like, see, there's a swelling. Like, I literally told the doctors I don't think it's possible. And it was, I think at that point of time, I sat down and I Googled. The internet was also
Yeah.
fairly new. I think I'm talking about 2004.
Oh, okay.
And I sat and Googled my symptoms, and I was like, okay, this is matching up to what the doctors are also talking about. It took me a month just to accept my diagnosis, just to say, okay, this could be true. Maybe this is coming from,
Mhm.
you know, the stress that I've been experiencing. Maybe this is um, me having.
But have you ever found the root cause of why did you feel all this? Did you have?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Okay.
I was in. I was not in Bangalore. I was being bullied at school,
Oh,
Okay.
and I didn't have, like, there was rumors that were spread about me. I had no one to talk to for a whole year in the
Mhm.
same setup, and I
Wow.
didn't. I was constantly putting myself. I mean, because you had to go
yeah,
to school. I
yeah,
Yeah.
my parents are someone who have sent me to school with 103. I mean, armed
yeah,
forces brat.
yeah.
They even took it even more seriously. So there was no way possible that I could say I don't want to go to school,
Yes.
Mm.
or I couldn't even tell them what was going on because I was myself, like, aghast
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
rumors that I would hear. So there was no one to help me in constantly putting myself in that state of having to be there but not wanting to be there.
Mm.
I was doing
Mm-hmm.
something
Yeah.
in a situation that was so forced for a period of, say, over a year, that eventually, when I was removed out of that situation and I came to Bangalore and I was going to school here, is when the symptoms came. So
Okay.
the symptoms were then triggered by, I think, I had a very strict maths teacher, and she was, always, I was trying my best to be a good student, but she was always taking out her anger on, all of us.
Okay.
Um, that she, what we don't understand about mental health is that it's not the the incident and the connection to it is not in the now,
Mm.
which is why childhood trauma or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
effects of it exist. So whatever I experienced was not anxiety, was not because of what was happening in my environment right now.
It can
Those were the
trigger it later on.
triggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
cause
Yeah.
factor was a long ongoing factor.
Mm.
I was moving every 2 years because of dad in the Air Force. So I didn't have stable
Yes. Yes.
friends.
Okay.
I didn't grow up with my
Mm.
grandparents. So
Mm.
besides my family, there was no stability in my life.
Hmm.
Not
Okay.
even a home environment, which
Mm.
Yeah.
is something that a lot of
Yeah.
people would take for
Definitely.
granted. Like
Yes.
just
Yeah.
having a house. I
Yeah.
think maybe I, these are the things that they say, when you look at mental health, sometimes having someone, even if your relationship with your parents is not the best, but you have a
Daddy issues.
grandparents who
Yeah.
are, you have grandparents who are very supportive, or
Mm.
you have friends who are very supportive.
Yeah.
So my parents, I felt, couldn't see me. They were not aware of. I felt very unseen at that point of time
Hmm.
because um, I think they had their own issues that
Yes.
they
Yeah.
were dealing with.
Yes.
So they were emotionally not available for me.
Mm.
And I didn't have emotional resources around me. So whatever challenges you have in life, actually having social connections is supposed to be great. I mean, it's scientifically proven, but
Definitely.
it's a very preventive factor.
But what do you think, like, our generation, the Gen Z, which has taken all these, like, some part of it is very easy for them. Like, Gen Z is way better compared to other generations in many other ways, but I feel they are the worst people at the same time in this issue, particularly. I think they are not as, they take it very, like, as I said before, it's very easy to manipulate them in this way, saying you have this. saying like most of them they're like I have ADHD, I'm autistic. I think it somewhere transitioned into being cool. Like
Yeah.
you're autistic. It's cool. It's somewhat cool. Like I don't understand how is it cool.
I was
Like,
depressed. I came out of it. That's
yeah.
cool for people.
Like now it's
to
like
learn.
everyone wants a comeback story saying, my girl left
I
me.
hit the
So
rock
you know,
bottom and I'm up now,
yeah.
all the way up.
So it's like that. So what would you like to say to the Gen Z that would bring a change in thinking about mental health in a specific way?
And usually, when people come up to you, what problems do they, what are the most problems they come up with?
So I think there are specific, like as an umbrella of Gen Z, it's very hard to classify people. But being in an environment where I'm constantly like there are people I'm hiring or having worked with people in the Gen Z mindset, I notice that the ones who have you know worked with me
Mhm.
aren't your typical Gen Z in any way. And they
Okay.
are usually the ones who have had significant amount of childhood trauma.
Okay.
So this is very weirdly, people don't talk about it, is that you have people talk about PTSD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't talk about post trauma growth. Anyone who you have met who has a certain level of depth to life, sensitivity, who is, people talk about Gen Z not showing up on time, Gen Z being this. I think, of course, Gen Z is facing a lot of flack these days.
Yeah.
Um, but when your environment has not allowed you growth,
Mhm.
then it's time when, life is the biggest teacher.
Yeah.
So whether you're going through that heartbreak, and I think a lot of the problems have not shifted. The problems were the same throughout every generation. Even if I take my parents' generation, they were going through the same,
Okay.
Yeah.
the same issues. It's just that to label themselves with mental health diagnosis was definitely not cool.
Yeah.
And even now, honestly, in most circles, it's not seen as something cool. If they want a comeback story because it looks cool on their Instagram, I think it's good for them because it took me so long to talk about my struggles.
Mm.
I think I did not open up about my mental health to anyone until I was in my late 20s
Okay.
because it was a part of you that if you've really suffered from it and you've seen,
Mhm.
it's like your body is doing things you don't want it to do,
Yeah.
right? It's like talking about, will you be proud about a episode of drunk drinking and stupid nonsense that you would have done after that
Mhm.
because you were out of your control. You didn't have
Yeah.
control over a certain behavior at that point of time. I had no control over what I was experiencing at that point of time. So there's no pride in that. It takes me so much to talk about my journey, and I only do it with the outlook that if I could have social anxiety and if I can be doing what I am today, then I want someone, maybe this might be someone's hope. And
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
content pieces that I've put up, and I clearly remember this one piece that, I mean, that touched me more than touched me was this one person, random, who I didn't know at all, came and hugged me and started crying. And she's like, I was going to, you have no idea who I am, she said. And I was like, yeah, but I saw this piece of yours on self love. And I was like, okay. I'm like, she's like, you have no idea. I had the dupatta hanging on the fan that day, and I was going
God.
to kill myself. And something happened, and I just thought I'll text my mom.
Mhm.
And you know how we binge on phone.
Yes.
Once
Yes.
we have the
Yes.
phone in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
it goes down from one place to another. And I had spoken about what real self love is.
Mm.
And she was like, I don't know what happened. I just couldn't do it after that. And
That's amazing.
it was, I mean, I don't think even today, to be
Mhm.
honest, I don't see people labeling themselves out of just fun because it's hard as a label. And even without an experience of it, if they are choosing to label themselves for fun as a comeback story, they are minimizing the s- the pain that the
Yeah.
person who is experiencing it is
Yeah.
going
That's
through,
Yes.
what's
Yes.
because
happening.
there's a lot of stigma. The stigma comes from the experience being
Yeah.
outside your
Yeah.
control, right? If you're depressed, you can't just knock yourself out of it.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
people are
Yes.
there, they will tell you that just go out, get some sunshine, go out, take a
Mm.
stroll with your friends, you'll be fine. Cure for depression. But they're not understanding that that whole person's experience of reality is shook.
Mm.
when the person is depressed, they can look at life and only what matches their current emotional experience is what they can remember. They will only remember periods of feeling unloved. Like how a person who's positive is constantly
Yes.
finding something to feel positive about. And you can even look at it as little woo woo. We always
Yeah,
match a
yeah,
vibrational
yeah.
state. The person who's depressed is only having a depressive experience. They can't change it by thinking positive thoughts,
Yes.
But how much time did it take you to come out of it? And like, what and all did you do not to come out of it?
So I was put on because my symptoms were so heavy and
Mm-hmm.
I was having regular panic attacks. I was straight away put on medication,
Okay.
and alongside therapy,
Mm-hmm.
wherein I learned meditation and progressive relaxation techniques. The medication was a year long,
Okay.
and once that medication ended, I did kind of, I would say, resume life, go back in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
imagine you have fever. Once your fever is done, you'll
Yeah.
just go back to
Yes,
life as
yes.
normal. I didn't try to operate from the perspective that I had
Mm-hmm.
panic attacks or I had anxiety. I went, except I think I realized I can't have coffee and go on amusement park rides. Everything else in my life went back to normal.
Okay.
Okay.
And then at 18, I got diagnosed with depression. That's what was a real knock, because after having had meds for a year,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, now, and at 18, I was in the space where my dad had written me off financially. He had a
Okay.
fallout with my mom, and he didn't want to take care of me financially. And I realized that if I kind of let this um, go, like I still remember near Alsu, there's this hospital where the doctor diagnosed me. And I was sitting outside and I was like, I don't have the money for this. I don't have money for therapy. I don't have money for medicines.
Mm-hmm.
I could only and only think of one thing, that if I can, I'm going to do my best. I started working out the next day, altered my diet. I was doing, in that state of pain, I was definitely not taking care of my health, but I could only see two alternatives.
Yeah.
You know, I could see the letting go, or I
Oh,
could say
yeah.
fight it.
Right.
And I would definitely not advise this. I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely say, don't take your mental health in your own hand. Not
Okay.
everyone can reverse it just by, like, I looked at all the basics: sunlight, sleep, exercise, diet.
Mm.
And that really helped, because I was studying psychology at that time.
Okay.
So I was reading up on the same diagnosis that I was being given. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, this is, you know, it spoke, like, of course, I was reading about how sunlight was very important and how everything, lifestyle played a major factor. So I chose to work on my lifestyle, because I was living at that point of time with my mom. So at least I could work on, like, just taking care of my health,
Yes.
Yeah.
fitness,
Yeah.
vitamin D levels. And I think it did within a period of 3 to 6 months have a turnaround for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the most valuable lesson you learned through your journey?
So through my mental health diagnosis, I have a lot of growth lessons, because life did not give me the permission to roll back on my back or curl up in a corner and
Yes.
die. I did
Yes.
not have that privilege or luxury to be able to do that. So I constantly had to fight my diagnosis. And at 18, when the whole situation at home happened and I had to figure out my financial uh, sorting out, pay my fees. One of the opportunities that came forth was to anchor shows
Hmm.
and
Okay.
talk on stage for corporates, weddings, and stuff like that. And this was the only way that I could see that, okay, you know what, this is how much I'll make per event I do. If I can do like 4 or 5 of this, then my monthly expense gets sorted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to save and put towards my college. But having had anxiety and having had such severe anxiety, every time I went up on stage, my body was not
Mm.
really supportive. So I had to fight my body that was constantly telling me danger when I was in that environment, and put my mind over my physiology at that point of time. So I think that's been my greatest experience, is that discomfort the ability to put yourself in situations of discomfort with ease
Mhm.
is actually something that predicts your success in life. I mean, at least I feel like that's
Definitely.
single-handedly true for me. And maybe if you look at an extreme profession, like someone who is an astronaut, they're definitely not comfortable.
Yes.
Yes.
They are in space.
Yes.
I was recently watching a video about how an astronaut goes to the washroom. It was not funny.
Yeah.
It was not funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looked extremely uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's in those moments of getting used to being in that state of discomfort. I think today what we want out of life and what Gen Z has experienced, because our parents really worked hard, is that Gen Z has experienced comfort.
Mhm.
And it's this challenge, and it's a fairly new thought, because I have a son too. So I'm like, as a mom, how do I give him the best in life, but also raise an emotionally rounded kid? And what created this dilemma for me, very interestingly, was this Marvel movie called Flash.
Okay.
Flash.
Have you seen it?
No.
No? Okay, so you know the character. He
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
he,
yeah.
he can run
He's
really
super
fast.
fast,
He's
yeah.
super fast. In the last movie which came out of him, where he's the solo or the main character,
Okay.
he starts running after being emotionally disturbed about something,
Okay.
and he realizes that he can run and break through speed time barrier,
Okay.
and through which he can literally roll back time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, long story short, he didn't have a mom. And it was one of the things that really hurt him, because not only did he lost his mom, his dad was falsely accused of killing his mom. So he lost both his parents. So he wants to go back in time and bring his mom alive. So he goes back in time, and his mom had sent him out into his mom had gone to the supermarket and forgotten to pick up tomatoes for the spaghetti she was planning to make. So she sends the dad to pick up tomatoes. And when the dad was out, someone came and broke into the house to steal and ends up killing the mom. So he decides he's just going to go and place those tomatoes in. So that's the only thing he does. He goes back in time and he places the tomato cans, and he tries to come back towards the future. Sometime around the time when chronologically he would be 18, in that thing when he's running, something kicks him out, and he comes into the time when he's 18, and he gets to interact with that 18-year-old version of himself, who is stupid, idiotic, doesn't even know how to do his own laundry. That version of him is so frustrating because it doesn't take life seriously. It has understood nothing of life. So the version of him who is living right now grew up without a mom from the age of 8 and has become somebody else entirely. For him, how saving the world is important, and he has the larger vision always at play. But for the other version, he's not able to grasp the seriousness of anything. So he decides at that point of time that he has to go back in time and stop himself from ever bringing such, ever
Yeah.
creating this alternative timeline. So he goes back in time and he takes the tomatoes outside the can. And this is like what I was talking about, post trauma growth that happens during moments of stress.
Mhm.
So not all stress is bad, and not negative situations aren't bad. It's about, because being in those negative situations is when we learn to deal with life, is when we gain perspective and we gain wisdom. Wisdom can't come from books, but having the lifestyle where we are provided for and taken care of and not given any larger understanding of life does not make us resilient. So when we've
Yes.
experienced stress, the Gen Z who you're talking about, and you're not using the word, you are saying that they seem more fragile.
Yeah.
And that's because they haven't had these experiences.
Yeah.
To them, to our parents, it was a reality where they grew up, was there was still scarcity.
Yes.
They were still, if they were privileged, they still understood that they were privileged.
Yes.
And they still
Yes.
understood that, okay, maybe in my house, I have this and I need to be grateful for it.
Hmm.
And outside situation. So I think they grew up with a very different mindset. And that's
Yeah.
what brought about the work ethics that you would see of that certain generation as well.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing. Like, easy men build tough times, tough men build hard men. So the cycle goes on. It's like we seek so much comfortability because our
Yeah.
parents worked for it. And I
Yeah.
think somewhere we'll create tough times where again our kids have to work for that comfort again.
I hope they don't have to. Um, but I think that's. I mean, if someone knows me, they know I can't last a day without talking about meditation. And this is where I think that there are only two ways you can evolve your consciousness, your awareness, your perspective, that gaining of wisdom. Either you can, life will shit on top of you again and again. If you have to bleep the word,
No.
you bleep the word again and again, kick you, and one day you're like, okay, fine, I am willing to become a student of life and
Mhm.
gain perspective out of the situation. Or you can sit and meditate and evolve your consciousness beyond your present circumstances. So when life will take those inevitable, give you those inevitable falls, but those will become training grounds.
Yes.
Right now, they are becoming ground, like, when someone says, if the child doesn't know swimming, put them in water.
Yeah.
Mm.
You don't put them in water because you can literally scare the child and
Yes.
they can drown.
Yeah,
And but
yeah.
that's how the world is experiencing life at this current point of time.
Mm.
They never learn to swim because we don't understand who we are is a system. We may be far evolved than an animal you see in the zoo,
Yeah.
but we are still biologically primitive.
Yes.
We are still a system.
Yes.
So if you don't know the user manual of this
Yes.
system, you're still trying to tackle things. You have no tools. You have literally no tools. But when you meditate and you try to have that understanding of life, and your brain literally grows in meditation, the connections between your left hemisphere and right hemisphere get stronger. Your brain, the areas of empathy are growing bigger.
Mhm.
The area of reasoning, your frontal cortex, the cortex that sets us apart from animals is our prefrontal cortex.
Yes. Yes.
That literally grows in connections, density during if you meditate. So if you're doing things that bring that, and there are other activities also, learning, exercise.
Yeah.
So if you are living a lifestyle which is helping you evolve,
Mhm.
there is no way that you won't be prepared for
I think
those
even our brain
situations.
is a tissue, a muscle which we
Yeah.
need to work on so that it's just like our physical body. We need to keep training it. I think like how you spoke about meditation, I think that's a very would you suggest like people who are going through trauma, depression, anxiety, like clinically, should meditate at least for some amount of time?
Only in the case of anxiety, I would say it,
Okay.
because imagine someone who is having depression, and I'm speaking out of personal experience here. Your thoughts are not in your control. They are
Okay.
feeding
Mm.
you garbage. Your thoughts are telling you stuff like you're not loved, you're not cared for,
Yeah.
you are worthless, you don't belong in this world, you don't belong in this universe.
Mm.
When you meditate with those thoughts, what is happening?
Yes.
Your thoughts are only speaking louder to you.
Yeah.
Mm.
It could actually get worse
Yeah.
if you meditate during depression. You don't
Wow.
you don't exercise when you have a muscle tear, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
You exercise so that you can lift weight, right?
Right.
You meditate so that you can lift life. Because if you're going to try lifting life when you are down there,
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's going to be harmful. If
Yeah.
you feel inclined to meditate, go ahead. But meditation during mental health crisis is not for everyone. In anxiety, it has been proven to help because you also learn to relax your muscles. You get more aware of your breath. You
Right.
start realizing that in stress, you are actually affecting from your breath. So,
Mm.
of course, it helps there. But I would say you don't meditate to get better at meditation. You meditate to get better at life. So if you want to
Mm.
not get mental health conditions, you start your meditation. If you want to be stronger, you start working out, right? Like,
Yeah.
so if
Right.
you want to be, and I think the biggest challenge that I feel with meditation is we have become very used to very fast. People believe in instant gratification these days.
Mm.
They feel like if I do this, I will get the results within a day or two. I use this new product, my results should come
Yeah.
within a week.
Yes. Yes.
I work out for 3 days, they are disappointed if they don't see any change.
Mm.
Things take time, and especially meditation, the benefits are very non visible. It's
Right.
not like buying something new, you
Yeah.
can show off to the
Yeah.
world. There is no, in fact, with meditation, there's no
Yeah,
showing
yeah,
off to the world.
It's not
I
even like physically working out where you can show your muscle.
exactly. The effect of meditation is something you can't show off in any way except the way you handle life. So for a lot of people in this era of instant gratification and living life at a certain amount of surface level, they don't understand meditation. They don't value it. I didn't value it either. Actually, don't get me wrong. Until a certain point of time, till life had kicked me enough, even I didn't value it.
But what was your moment that you felt like I should meditate? What got you into it?
So I meditated on and off from the
Okay.
time I was 16, and at different points of time, like even during my pregnancy, I was diagnosed with certain conditions. I had to be on blood thinners and stuff. So at every point, I knew that there are health and medical science linked benefits to meditation. So I would kind of, treat it like a on and off relationship. Go to it when I needed
Yeah.
it. But I think before the pandemic, I was experiencing being a mom. I was having a lot of personal stress in life. Life itself was feeling challenging. So when the pandemic hit, I was just like the first thing that I could do for myself. And this was just, I think news had started coming out around that time. I was like, okay, let me start doing it every day. I've not never really stuck to it. So, I've done it for 6 months, I've done it for 3 months. And that also, one today, not tomorrow. The day I feel like, I'm not feeling so good, that day I meditate. But the second I started doing it every day, I think December of 2020, no, 2019, I can say consistently the amount of changes that I saw in my life, I felt I'd be stupid to not do it every day. Because I could
Wow.
feel actual shifts in not just my thinking or my, just, what is mental health? Your mental health is who you are with yourself, your relationship with others, your emotional experience of the world.
Right.
When your very fabric of your emotional experience of the world gets altered, and I was experiencing like biological benefits, as I was nausea, I was road sickness free for the first time in my life, stuff like that. Like I was like, wait, why have I been, dissing it all this while? Why have I not been consistent at it? And from that day, I think it just started being consistent, and it's become the one thing. What I realize is when we are stressed, stress doesn't show up as stress, maybe overthinking. It shows up as not wanting to eat food, or not wanting to eat on time, or overeating. It shows up as inconsistent behaviors. Like one of the things that never happened in my generation is if I called you and you didn't answer your call, it literally meant either you were asleep or you were dead. You had to be literally not around your phone or in a situation to not
Yeah,
take it.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
right now, if a
yeah.
call
Yes.
came, I would not answer it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm on this podcast.
Yes.
But today, people are not able to handle the small stresses. You know what I tell myself? Imagine a prime minister, love him or hate him. You have to just sit and imagine what a day in his life is going to be like.
Right.
When if you've spent any time near a celebrity, there are people who constantly want a bite of you. Take a picture, do this, come here. Sir,
Yeah.
if you come there, it'll be like so amazing. You have to
Right.
constantly figure out what you want to do, because there's people want you all the time. They need some part of
Yeah.
you. So if a prime minister of this country can shuffle and juggle so much, I'm sure he wakes up early to do the kind of day he has to. He doesn't have a choice. That
Right.
means that is our optimal bandwidth as people, and all of us have not optimized on that bandwidth. Whether you talk about someone in a certain industry who wakes up at 4 and does, and I'm not saying it has to be work related. No. You, if you can do that with life, if you're living life in an optimized manner where you're able to give yourself to multiple areas, your phone calls, your families, your work situation, your health, your workout, your diet, having all of these going at once is not easy for anyone. If you can just be consistent with that, because every time when you're stressed or something changes in your life, a friend stops talking to you, you may not notice any visible effects, but you
Yeah.
look for the small signs. The small signs
Yes.
could be
Yes.
you're not sleeping well enough.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're sitting at night and binging on social media. And this was hard for me. Last year, I lost my nanny. And I know I love my grandmom, like everyone loves their grandmom. But I knew it was her time. We had been prepared for it. I had spent a lot of time traveling. in the year before her death, just making sure I spent quality time with her. Every month I was going to Delhi, literally. And when she passed away, within a couple of months, I was binging massively on social media, and it had never happened. Like,
Mm.
I had to put all kinds of screen locks and timers to make sure I stayed out of it. And I was like, what happened? So my brain needed something else to cope with my experience. And I meditate every day and I deal with life so well that it really made me wonder that how are people who are out there, like, how are they dealing with life? Because this was a minor setback,
Mm.
but this, I could see the effect. I could see that it played out in some way.
Right.
But people who are not aware are just going on. Like, they're just in that
Yeah.
loop. They may
Mm.
think, yeah, I'm not, I mean, this happened, but I'm not stressed.
That is how it is. It's like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like before, doing the podcast, we were talking about, you were just telling me that how your energy is always stable throughout the day, even in the night, and that is
Yes.
crazy. I think everyone has to achieve that. Like
Yes.
at least if you're like a celebrity or like a politician, like the PM or someone. Like obviously there are so many people around you doing stuff. They want so much out of you. At that time, if you have that stable mindset, you're calm, and then you can do all of it.
Yes.
Yes, you don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right now, if you had a day where you were like, okay, I have to do all of this, I have to work out, I have to meditate, I have to do X hours of work, and I have to watch what's happening at home. Like, I have to take care of
Yes.
who's doing
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
oversee people at work, oversee people at home. There's this tendency to overwhelm. Like, oh my God, there's too much happening.
Mm.
We get overwhelmed with less. But when you train your brain to take on more and to be able to do more, and I've pushed myself in different ways, whether it was with anxiety or my ability to do more,
Mm.
to challenge that feeling of overwhelm
Right.
again and again.
Also, like we were talking about traveling, so one thing you can evolve a lot while meditating, because obviously you're in that state of mind where a lot of things come up in your head, and that is how you evolve. Like even when you're gymming or something like that, physically you're evolving, and even when you're meditating, that is how it is. But traveling, I think that is something, which changes something in you. Like once you get back home, it feels something different. Does that happen to you? Is that why you travel a lot?
I think travel definitely for me has been evolving, but I think it's all of it. I think we try to look at life as one area or something is going to set, and
Right,
I think
right.
people want that one cure all, one thing
Yeah,
that's going to
yeah,
figure
yeah,
everything out.
yeah.
But especially when it comes to mental health, I think there's this beautiful acronym. I'm going to try and remember the name of the doctor, but he's specifically done a lot of research on Alzheimer's, and he came up with this acronym called SHIELD. You need your sleep, your ability to handle stress, your engagement with other people, learning, your diet, all of these, from sunlight to all of these things are playing a certain role.
Yes.
If you don't have social connections, you're
Mm.
obviously not. So I do feel a certain amount of growth that happens when I travel, especially because I feel like having had anxiety solo traveling, and I solo travel,
Mm-hmm.
is constantly putting myself in situations that are uncomfortable
Uncomfortable. Okay.
and that
Yeah.
allow room for growth.
Right.
Yes.
When you're
Yes.
traveling alone, there is
Mhm.
definitely a lot more that you're juggling. And I try to only plan very small parts of my itinerary and leave
Mhm.
more to spontaneity,
Yeah.
because anxiety is the same feeling as a roller coaster. The
Yes.
woo
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
get in
yeah.
roller coaster, either it can be excitement or anxiety. So when you don't make a detailed plan and you try to do things on a impromptu level, it actually pushes you to grow. But I don't think traveling does that for everyone. I would say this, and
Yes.
again, I'm not sure how many people would consider this. We are also traveling a lot through our phones, and I do even as an influencer. And the next thing we travel with is someone to travel with.
Mm.
When you're traveling with someone, you're never outgrowing your social context.
Right.
Whatever
Yeah.
knowledge you have and
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have is
Yes.
the only knowledge that is getting exchanged.
Right.
Yes.
Like when you guys are doing this podcast and different people are coming and speaking
Yeah.
different things, you don't know, but you
Mm,
are
mm.
evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
growth is happening.
Yes.
When I'm traveling alone and I'm meeting people there in another country, learning about their cultures, learning about something different about life, that's when growth happens. So for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
it happens. But I would say, you taking a beautiful holiday
Yeah.
with 3 friends, going to us, going to Thailand, taking a lot of pictures in your phone. You come back, you're the same person. You're
Yeah,
not changed
yeah.
in any way. You maybe have a tattoo you regret now.
Thailand. I think a lot of people go and evolve, in Thailand. That is how the place is.
they do they do find out new things about their life when they wake up next day and they're like, wait, is that a girl? No. No. I don't think you evolve when you're not doing anything new. When I went to Bali, I did this small trek and I did this whitewater rafting experience on my birthday all alone. And I think we want this sense of self-importance. Um, where it's damaging is we're also very identified with the identity of am I. Whoever
Okay,
you
okay,
think you
okay.
are,
Yes,
you've
yes,
already
yes.
labeled yourself.
Yeah.
I am disciplined or I'm
Mhm.
not disciplined. I am a healthy eater. I am something. You have identified that for yourself
Yeah.
and defined it way too much.
Yes.
So the
Mm.
identity of who you are actually loves birthdays.
Mm.
Okay,
It loves the
okay,
celebration of the
okay.
self,
Yes, yes,
the attachment to the self.
yes.
So when I went to Bali and I was like, okay, I'm here all alone, nobody to wish me, nobody to celebrate with me. And I did all of these, I did a lot of things. And I remember on the third day of a 7-day trip, I ended up with the worst leg cramps because of this trekking experience. It's my birthday. I'm
Mhm.
alone and I can't even get up from the bed and go to the washroom.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
And it's the only thing you can do when you have leg cramps is to
Mm.
keep moving,
Yes.
because that's the only thing that'll get the lactic acid out of
Yes.
Yeah.
the muscles
Yeah.
and the one thing that's painful. So in that situation, I came back and I was like, wait, I thought I'm healthy. I thought I do a certain amount of workout, but clearly my life is not serving me. So
Mm.
I went back. When I came back home, I decided to change certain patterns around my lifestyle. I worked to increase my stamina. I worked to really get much more healthier, fitter. When I did Nepal, I came back and I reflected on how being in touch with nature has been so important to me
Yes.
all my life. And now, today, my team works from home and I spend most of my time in nature. I work from nature.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you're coming back and you're seeing what you learned out of a situation,
Mm.
when you have a relationship that doesn't work and you're like, okay, wait, this is what I recognize, but within me and maybe with the other person that didn't make this work, it's already a growth lesson. And
Mhm.
anything in life can be a growth lesson, not just a
Yes.
holiday.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's your perspective that's allowing you that growth. And you
Right.
can, if you don't want to grow, you can put people in the best of life situations and they won't grow.
Yeah.
So I think it's life's, it's the desire to grow out of that. So I do now consciously be like, okay, wait, this is what I learned. This is how I can apply. This is how I can live differently. And if you can do that, I think it's a lot of.
I think that's the way to go. Uh, so what I think this would be preferably our last question. So I would want you to advise one relation of yours or one relation of everyone's. Like, what advice would you give them? A modern mother. What advice would you give them?
A modern mother,
Yeah.
I would tell them that work on yourself first, because
Okay.
motherhood is something that takes a lot from you
Okay.
and you can only give when you have.
Okay.
So don't put the needs of your child before yourself,
Okay.
even though it sounds selfish.
Yes.
That's the way our parents raised us. Was they made us always feel like we were first and they were second. When you
Yes.
put yourself first,
Mhm.
naturally your choices towards your child will be much better, because you
Yeah.
work on being a better human being
Right.
makes you a better mother.
Definitely.
A modern father.
I think a modern father is still not as, when we talk about equality between genders, I think a modern father is able to mentally switch off the way our brains work, is able to switch off from the role of parenting mentally very
Yes.
easily. So as soon as he's not in that same room, he can switch out of parenting. I think getting aware of what parenting really feels like, working on his empathy towards his partner, and developing that relationship with his partner is what he can do for his child. Yeah.
I think that's the most important two relations in your life, because most of your so-called mental health, if not advised by these two people in your life, I think most of them will be solved then and there itself. If
Mm.
so, you don't need to carry forward a lot of things in your life. So I feel whatever the advice you give to the parents these days may impact the kids in the future, and I
Yeah.
hope it does. So I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Tamanna, for doing this. I just want to tell all the Gen Zs that seek discomfort. That is what I've learned
Yes.
today's episode.
Yes.
I think once you start seeking discomfort, you'll evolve a lot, and that is the truth. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here, guys. I hope it was,
Yes.
as
Yeah,
engaging and interesting for
Yes.
you.
it's fun.
Yes.
All right, that's it for this Friday. See you all on next Friday, man. Thank you.
Thank you.